You mentioned the offensive line.
Yeah.
How much of Sonny coming? How did he kind of come on the radar, and how much has he changed not just what he's able to do, but the whole line?
He came on the radar. Jed Fish, our offensive coordinator, had experience with him at University of Miami, and we got wind that he had graduated and was looking to be a graduate transfer, and so we started to communicate with him, and it just worked out where he came to UCLA. And I'll tell you this, Ben, I think that it was a very big acquisition for us, not just because he's massive, but because it gives us some experience and it allows us to build some depth. With Colton Miller at left tackle and Sonny at right tackle, you've got a couple of large men that are athletic and have experience. It allows us to do some things inside at the guard position. You guys know that we had Kenny Lacy working at tackle during the spring. Andre James played tackle when Colton got hurt last year. So we have some flexibility that we didn't have. It's going to be important for us to stay healthy. You'd like to be able to go through a season with your starting five intact. That's not always realistic. But we need to do a really good job in the next 3 or 4 weeks of trying to develop some depth. And I believe we've got some young men that can step up and really progress and have progressed. Burton, who we switched from defensive line to offensive line, seems to have made a really good transition. Michael Alves is a young man that I think will develop into a guy that can play if we need him. Paco, Perez, healthy. So I think that there's some good things happening there, but it's still very much a question mark.
Did you feel like the team was able to accomplish what it needed to as far as conditioning and summer workouts? I know after spring that was a big point of emphasis, that what they did the next few months would be really important.
The players have done a tremendous job. Number one, it starts with Coach Alosi and our organized mandatory workouts, and the lifting and the conditioning and the recovery. But our players have had, I just was talking to Scotty, they've had 25 player run practices where everybody's there. They've got a script. They're doing individual. They're doing one-on-one. They're doing team. They're doing 7-on-7 or skelly, as some people call it. And we're not allowed to watch it. NCAA regulations permit or do not permit coaches to watch it, film it, anything like that, evaluate it. I don't even know that we're allowed to ask about it. But our players have volunteered to me that it's been very, very productive. That the young guys have come in this summer and have embraced it, and it'll put us ahead of where we've been in the past because we've had so many of those. We've never had this many, so I think it'll be a good thing, and I think it creates ownership for the players. They're having to teach each other. They're having to work with each other. They're having to compete and cooperate at the same time.
How important is it to have Kenny's leadership, especially on defense this season?
Very important. Kenny is very well respected by all of our coaches, certainly the players. He's a very serious young man. He's team-oriented and goal-driven. He's accomplished a lot of great things at UCLA, both on and off the field. And I think one of the things I'm most proud of is the things that he's been able to do academically. But he's a serious guy, and winning is important to him. Being on the right type of team is important to him, and I think he's a great example for not only our young players, but our entire team.
How do you feel about the offense with the new coaches after one spring?
Well, I feel good, and I think that is that killing you guys? I hope I continue to feel good, but it's a good group of men. Jed Fish has tremendous pedigree. He's worked with 3 Super Bowl winning head coaches, and Brian Billick, Mike Shanahan, and Pete Carroll. He's also worked with Steve Spurrier and Jim Harbaugh, as well as many great assistants, and has a very clear idea of what we want to be offensively. It's great to get Deshaun Foster back in the fold. He has a tremendous influence on our players. Jimmy Dougherty comes in as the receiver coach, and I've had a chance to watch him coach when he was at University of Washington. and I wasn't coaching, and go daily to practice and loved his energy, and our players have really taken to him. And then bringing in Hank Fraley as the offensive line coach, who's played in the NFL, did it really probably less on talent and more on technique and intelligence and work ethic. Coached in the NFL, coached in college. It's a good staff. I'm excited about it.
You brought in a couple of big-time kids in Jalen Phillips and Donnie Holt. What kind of impact did they make as freshmen?
Well, we're fortunate that they both were able to come for winter quarter. So they were able to go through winter conditioning, and then they were able to go through spring practice. So they got those 15 practices plus these 25, 26 player run practices that they'll have before camp. So they're going to have 40 practices under their belt before we start next week. So I think that will contribute to them being able to be impactful as freshmen. They're both tremendously talented young men. They're mature. They're competitive. And I think that they both have a chance to see a lot of time, and they'll push for starting positions. And we're not afraid to play them. If they're the guys that are going to do it the way it needs to be done for us to be successful.
Has the plan developed for Darnay to go both ways from April?
We have to move slowly. We need to master something. We need him to master being a defensive back, a corner, and a nickel. But fortunately, he's very smart, and I know that Jed is very creative, and we will have packages for him. We just have to make sure that we're monitoring it so that we give Darnay the best chance to have the individual success that will lead to team success. But you want a guy like that to have the ball in his hands.
Well, there's going to be national attention on Josh and Sam being in the same town. Do you embrace that? Do you ignore it? How do you manage that?
Well, we just focus on ourselves, and we acknowledge that Sam's a great player. It's fun to have two great quarterbacks in the same city, in the same conference. But what's important for us is just to try to be the best we can be, because that's what we control. We can't control Sam. But I know this, he's fun to watch. He's not fun to compete against, because he's tough to get down, and he's a heck of a competitor.
How has Josh progressed in his grasp of Jed's offense since April, and how has their relationship helped his progression?
I think that he's progressed tremendously, and I think it's a huge credit to Josh Rosen and the way that he's matured and the way that he's approached this offseason. Just like all these young men, they kind of get it at a different time, and I think a lot of things factored into Josh having the productive offseason that he's had, certainly being injured and having football kind of removed from his life as a player for the time that he did affected him, humbling himself to a certain degree and accepting coaching. I think that he has had I've been asked a couple times, is it helpful or hurtful that he's on his third quarterback coach? For some, it might be hurtful. For Josh, I think it's helpful because he loves information. He loves to absorb information. I think when you talk about Noel Mazzoni, a coach that came in and, coordinated an offense that I believe holds almost every offensive record in UCLA history. He had, a sense about him, a calm about him that I think Josh learned from. And then to bring in Marcus Tuiasosopo, who played the position and played it with grit and determination and so much success, and they could relate to each other and bounce things off each other. And now to have a person like Jed with his pedigree and his background and the people he's coached for and the players that he's coached, it's all building this very strong platform for Josh that I believe he's embracing. And I see a very strong relationship there.
So how did you personally deal with the losing season, and how do you evaluate and move on from it?
Well, it's hard. You're not in this to do anything but try to have success, and every loss rips your guts out. And the first thing you do is you point the finger at yourself. And you say, where did I not do a good enough job, and how are we going to learn from this? I think you make a huge mistake if you make excuses or sweep it under the rug, if you blame injuries. There are factors, but you have to look deeper than that. You have to look at everything that you do, from the way you meet, to the way you practice, to your schemes, to how you coach, to the words you use, to the culture you're building, to how you let them recover. and you just pull it all apart, and you use your experience and the experience of your coaches and your colleagues, and you try to put it back together in a way that will give you a chance to succeed in the future. And that's been what we've tried to do this offseason.
Biggest concerns going into fall camp, and where the battle's going to be fought?
Well, I don't know that I have huge concerns other than, as I said with Ben, just, seeing how the offensive line develops, and can we create a chemistry with those five and see them play the whole year. I'm always concerned with injuries during camp because you have to find the right mix of contact and player safety, and that's always, there's a rub there. I usually lean towards player safety. The biggest battles, I think, the backup quarterback position is a battle. I think we've got three really pretty good players competing for two guard positions on the offensive line. I think we need to make a decision there pretty quickly so we can get that cohesiveness I talked about. I think that defensively, because we play more players defensively than we do offensively, it's more for, maybe not the starting job, but playing time. Defensive end with Jalen Phillips and Keyshawn Lucier-South, or corner with Darnay and Denzel Fisher and Colin Samuel. So there's some, and punter. Everyone wants to talk about that, but we've got a competition at punter as well.
Any thoughts on eliminating two-a-days and the impact it has on camp?
I'm a proponent of the elimination of two-a-days. I think adding the days that they did to the front end of the practice schedule, while it's been a challenge because it happened late and it's forced us even up till today to adjust, how we're going to practice, when we're going to practice. Now our players are in school when they wouldn't be. There's been some challenges, but I think it's all worth it. I think that we have to be conscious of player safety. When you see a study that came out the other day where the deceased NFL players' brains that they studied, and you saw the high rate of CTE, that doesn't just happen when they go to the NFL. That starts at an early age, and so we have to be conscious of those things. These are young men that we're dealing with, and player safety has to be a premium. The percentage of these young men that are going to go on and make a living at this is minuscule. So I'm in agreement with it, very much so.